professional for improper prescribing and misuse of controlled medications. And she's very involved in helping to monitor the smoke shops from their perspective. So on that note, that's what we came here to hear. I want to introduce Caitlin and have her take it away. Caitlin.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad everybody was able to make it today. Like Ingrid said, my name is Caitlin. I'm coming from the Department of Consumer Protection. I'm a drug control agent. Just a quick disclaimer about the presentation today. But I wanted to start off by explaining a little bit about the Connecticut Consumer Protection Department. We're made up of 4 subsections. That would be the Drug Control Division, the Connecticut Prescription Monitoring and Reporting System, Medical Marijuana Program, and the Adult Use Cannabis Program. So we're split up into 3 territories in the state, North, South, and West. I'm from the West Territory, which includes Stamford and most of the surrounding towns. So all drug control agents are registered pharmacists. We all have at least 3 years of experience as pharmacists in the state of Connecticut. The traditional side of drug control focuses on the pharmacies, pharmacists, doctors, nurses, and the prescribing of controlled substances in Connecticut, while the adult use cannabis program, which is my department, works with our licensed dispensaries and retailers and all the pharmacists, techs, and employees that work there, as well as the electronic nicotine device credential, which all of these smoke shops and vape shops are required to have to sell their tobacco vape products. So that's how we get involved with the illicit cannabis that's showing up at these locations. So when the smoke shops sign up for a credential to sell their electronic nicotine devices or vapes, they consent to an inspection by our department at any reasonable hour. So we don't need a search warrant, and we can search all areas of the smoke shop, the back rooms, the offices, etc. So this makes for a great partnership with local PD because we're able to gain access to all the areas of the shop. We help identify the illicit products. We help them calculate what we find, what they seize. But as a department, we can take administrative action only on their license. So it's much more effective in our experience when product is seized. So certain municipalities will arrest the cashier when we go in and find illicit cannabis. Norwalk does this a lot. And they can also arrest the owner. New Fairfield did this recently. You can Google the article on that. But so we also partner with other state departments. We partner with the Department of Revenue Services and the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services very often. So DRS checks for the illegal cigarette stamps, and they can write citations. And DMIS, Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, has underage buyers that will go in and purchase tobacco products, and if they're not carded, it just adds to the weight of what a lot of these places are doing when we can show that they're not IDing and they're selling vapes to kids. We also can collaborate with the Department of Labor. I recently worked with them, and they were able to put a stop work order on the door of a vape shop that day for paying the employees under the table. So we do work with a lot of other state agencies as well as municipalities and their local police stations. So for the first offense of selling to a minor, the cashier will get a $300 citation. And that's selling to a minor, the illegal sale of cigarette, tobacco, or an electronic nicotine delivery system. The second offense is $750, and the third is $1,000. So these are the signs and symptoms of cannabis use. We have increased appetite, red eyes, disorientation, impaired sensory perception, possible paranoia or increased anxiety, a reduced attention span, hallucinations, and mood changes. And cannabis intoxication occurs when a person experiences adverse effects from cannabis. The treatment is usually symptomatic management, and adverse effects can vary based on multiple factors, such as the dose, the length of use, the frequency of use, the mode of administration, if they vaped it, smoked it, ate it, and also the user's prior experience. So this is Public Act 2379, which was recently passed, that high THC hemp is cannabis and is treated as such. So it's subject to all of the restrictions and requirements that cannabis is. And so this electronic nicotine device credential that the smoke shops, the vape shops, the convenience stores, that they hold, it does not allow them to sell cannabis. It only allows them to sell nicotine vapes. So any kind of high THC hemp product is considered cannabis, which they're not supposed to be selling. So cannabis is legal in the state of Connecticut to medical marijuana patients through a licensed pharmacist or as an adult use cannabis consumer to anyone 21 and older. However, it's only legal to be sold by state licensed cannabis establishments, which are adult use retailers, hybrid retailers, and dispensaries. So there's no gas station, no convenience store or smoke shop or vape shop in this state that has this license. So all of our licensees undergo 5 different inspections with us before they even open, and they must adhere to very strict security guidelines. So nowhere that you can just walk into without showing your ID in a separate reception room before gaining access is one of our licensed establishments. So that's really your first sign. If you can just walk in without showing ID and purchase something, they're not a licensed establishment through us. If you wanted to verify, you can look up our licensed cannabis establishments on our website, ct.gov/cannabis. It will bring up a map and a list of all our licensed dispensary facilities, hybrid retailers, and retailers. Our licensed cannabis establishments check IDs several times before cannabis is even able to be purchased. So they have ID scanners and multiple checkpoints. In addition, there's never any cannabis out on the sales floor. The smoke shops and the vape shops, you'll walk in and immediately see it under glass cases. It's in our regulations for our licensed cannabis establishments where cannabis cannot even be viewed from the sales floor. So just another red flag. If you walk in and see product, it's not one of our establishments. So a lot of people hear Delta 8. So I wanted to get into a little bit about the history behind that and what is Delta 8, what is cannabis, Delta 9, Delta 10. So the 2018 Farm Bill legalized the commercial production of hemp, and this federal bill defined it as any part of the cannabis plant with a Delta 9 THC concentration of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis, so flower products. The loophole that a lot of companies use to create products is they stated that they were compliant with the Farm Bill because they contained other forms of THC. That's where the Delta 8, Delta 10, Delta 11 comes in, because the federal bill only specified that it cannot be more than 0.3% Delta 9. And Delta 9 is the marijuana, the cannabis that you typically think of. So they created a loophole by making an isomer of Delta 9, Delta 8, Delta 10, all that. Connecticut, we closed this loophole by determining that the total THC is all of these isomers added up. So total THC is Delta 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And all of those are added together to get you to the 0.3%. And then for products such as edibles, patches, and tinctures, we use a milligram per serving and container to identify what's legal and illegal to be sold. So while the last slide was talking about a percentage of 0.3%, that's for flour. Things like edibles, it's very difficult to signify a percentage to that. Milligrams makes it much more clear, because all you can do is a small edible, take that, and if that's greater than 0.3, you just keep making the edible bigger and bigger, and you're allowed to have more THC in there. So by making it a milligram, that really kind of closed the gap on that. So only up to 1 milligram per serving and 5 milligrams of container can be sold outside of our licensed establishments. Most packages we see in these vape shops and smoke shops have at least 100 times the allowed THC, as you'll see in some of the examples that I have coming up. So again, The takeaway is that flower products over 0.3% added up all of the deltas 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then the other products with more than 1 milligram per serving and more than 5 milligram per container are considered cannabis and are never allowed to be sold in any store outside of our licensed dispensary facilities. So if you do see these cannabis products, which we're going to get into how to identify them next, definitely call your local law enforcement and let them know. And I also have a slide on how you can report it to us coming up. So getting into identifying these products. When you walk into a smoke or a vape shop, how do you know what's allowed to be there and what's not? So quickly, I wanted to touch on cannabis-infused beverages because this was the latest product that was starting to get out of control. Restaurants, grocery stores, cafes, all types of places were selling these without IDing. So effective July 1st, Public Act 2476 was passed, stating that you must be 21 years of age to purchase, and that these beverages can only be sold in our licensed cannabis establishments or package stores, and these package stores have to have applied for a waiver through the state. So if you see beverages that are advertising to contain cannabis outside of a package store or outside of a cannabis establishment, they are no longer allowed to be selling them there. And then we have some rules coming into effect October 1st, and that's about having only 3 milligrams of THC per container. The container must be at least 12 fluid ounces, and they cannot come in packs of more than 4. And again, even with all of those, they still can only be sold at a cannabis establishment or a package store who have applied for an endorsement with us to sell. So age-gated places, they have to be somewhere where you're being ID'd and making sure that you're over 21 years of age. Some more packaging and labeling requirements on these infused beverages. They are subject to labeling requirements with our department, so they must have a symbol on it indicating that they're 21 plus, that they contain any synthetic cannabinoids, cannot be packaged or labeled in any way that mimics a commercially available product, and cannot appeal to children or anybody under the age of 21. So we have a couple examples here on the right. This Kool-Aid cannabis beverage is not an approved infused beverage by us. We would not allow this to be sold in a cannabis establishment or outside of cannabis establishment. I'll have many more examples coming up of products that clearly appeal to children or even just could be confused as a non-cannabis product. And that's the biggest issue that we're seeing in the vape and smoke shops and what they're selling there. Okay, so getting into the packaging and labeling of cannabis products. All cannabis and high THC products, which remember are considered cannabis as well, are approved to sell to medical patients and adult use consumers 21. They have very strict packaging and labeling guidelines through our department. The labels have to clearly indicate the brand name of the product, the presence of THC or CBD or both, the serving size, the package size, as well as dosing information, and it must be in plain contrasting color with the Times New Roman font. The packaging must be child resistant, tamper resistant, and light resistant. So you'll notice that the products for sale in smoke and vape shops are never child resistant, and they're usually extremely easy to open. So our packaging for all edibles must be white, and the examples you'll see coming up include all kinds of vibrant colors with crazy fonts, and that's your first red flag that this is not a Connecticut approved product, because all of our edibles are going to come in a plain white package. So this is an example of a label for a Connecticut approved vape product that would be allowed to be sold, again, only in our licensed cannabis establishments. So never in a smoke shop, never in a vape shop, never in a convenience store or gas station, but you'll see the brand name, the THC potency, the required warning statement. It's an FDA, that it's not an FDA approved product, and it's always going to be outlined in a red box. Allergen information, serving size, and every product will have 2 warning symbols, one to indicate that it contains THC and one to indicate that it's 21 plus. So if these required elements are not on the label, again, another red flag that it is not Connecticut approved product. And you should only be seeing these in a licensed cannabis establishment. These are some more examples of Connecticut approved products. So the top right corner shows an edible package, which you can see is all white. And then we have a few other examples of flower, a pre-roll, a vape product, all of which have the plain black and white Times New Roman labels with all the required elements, and the 2 warning symbols will always be on every single one of these labels. This is just a close-up of a Connecticut approved edible product. So note the white packaging, the child and tamper-resistant nature. All of our approved edibles will either be square or round in shape. And then there's the allergen information, the required symbols, and the required warning statement outlined in a red box is over on the, you can see it on the corners of the product. So these approved cannabis products should never be sold outside of a licensed dispensary facility, hybrid retailer, or retailer. If you see these types of products being sold outside of a licensed cannabis establishment, so any gas station, convenience store, vape shop, smoke shop, we can provide guidance at drug control. Okay, so moving on to what the illicit products look like. This is nothing like the black and white plain containers that we just saw. They're brightly colored. They don't have the required labeling information. They don't have warning symbols, and they're not child or tamper resistant. So this left picture is a picture of some stuff that was seized from a vape shop. Again, just more examples of illicit products, just to really show how different they look from the plain white packaging and black and white labels. And there's often no kind of 21 plus sign, cannabis sign, and a lot of the products you'll actually see a California label on it, because that's where a lot of these products come from. So that's another red flag. If it has a California symbol on it, it'll be a CA with an exclamation point. It's just another indication that that's not a Connecticut approved product. So the only products, like we had talked about, that smoke and vape shops are able to sell have to be under that 0.3% flower. All of these products are going to have a QR code on the product that you can pull up, and it'll tell you the total THC in the product. Remember, we're not looking at simply Delta 8, we're looking at any total THC, Delta 8, 9, 10, any other phenotypes of it. So in this particular product, it is 19.44% THC. So this is considered cannabis. If it was being sold in a smoke or a vape shop, they're not allowed to be selling it. It has to be under 0.3%. This one here is a certificate of analysis. Again, that this is brought up through a QR code that's found on the package. And if you pull this up for a product being sold at a vape shop or a smoke shop, you can see it has over 600 milligrams of THC. They're allowed to sell 1 per serving and 5 milligrams per the whole container. So this is 120 times what they're allowed to be selling. Just as a reference point, when I worked as a medical marijuana pharmacist, I started patients out at 2.5 milligrams of edible for a debilitating condition. And this is 600 milligrams being sold in a non-tamper resistant, non-child resistant packaging. There's clearly several things wrong with these products that were being sold in a vape shop in Connecticut. The brightly colored packaging, and the packaging bears a reasonable resemblance to trademark packaging. So they really look like the real product if you don't look up too close. This is obviously what makes the product so dangerous, because teachers and parents and coaches might not think anything of it if they saw one of these bags in their child's room or backpack. And children might not think that there's cannabis in them as well, and consume the whole package just to experience some really uncomfortable side effects in an hour or two thinking they just ate a bag of potato chips and potentially consumed 600 milligrams of cannabis in one sitting. This is another product that we seized. We see these a lot. These are never a Connecticut compliant product, and there's the colorful packaging. It's 300 milligrams, which again, this whole package would only be allowed to be 5 to be sold in a smoke or a vape shop. It appeals to children. There's none of the required warnings, and it's not at all junk. And on the bottom one, you can see that QR code where it says lab results. That's what you would be scanning to pull up the certificate of analysis if you needed to. But right here on the front, it shows that it's 300 milligrams. So it's way over what they could be selling. The maximum would be 5. But if you wanted to pull up that certificate of analysis to see how much is really in it, you could do so right there. So I just wanted to bring up the photo again of our approved cannabis edibles just to show the very contrasting nature of these two products. The previous Wonka bar would very much stand out as non-compliant now that you know that this is what our compliant products look like. So some more products that we seized, colorful packaging. This has 1,000 milligrams of THC in the container. There's no warnings on it. It's not child resistant, and it appeals to children. A lot of these products use characters and images that directly appeal to children, other than just the taste and the flavors being enticing. They a lot of times will use cartoons and familiar characters to kids as well. This peanut butter on the left contains 1,600 milligrams of THC. Again, our maximum package size for what vape shops and smoke shops can have is 5. It's massively over that. And then this THC syrup that we found on the right has absolutely no serving size or package size, just lets you know to shake well. So really dangerous. Just another example of how these products look so similar to commercially available snacks. At first glance, most people would assume these are just the regular gummy worms or Sour Patch Kids, but these packages contain over 600 milligrams of THC, and that's a lot of cannabis, especially for a child or a cannabis naive person. So it's very easy to mistake this for the real product. Another thing I wanted to touch on were the synthetic cannabinoids. So you may see some products in these vape and smoke shops and convenience stores that are labeled as HHC instead of THC, or HXC we see, or THCO, THCP, all kinds of them. And you might wonder if they're legal since it's not labeled as THC, but they are still prohibited in the state. They're synthetic cannabinoids, which means that they're artificial. They're chemically produced, and that makes them potentially even more dangerous. These synthetic drugs replicate the effects of natural cannabis and delta-9 THC, but they induce much more serious adverse effects, including respiratory difficulty, hypertension, tachycardia, chest pain, muscle twitches, acute renal failure, anxiety, agitation. So for these products, it doesn't matter what the percentage is, they're illegal in nature. Public Act 24-115, as of June 4th of this year, prohibits synthetic cannabinoids by classifying them as a Schedule I controlled substance. So it doesn't matter what the percentage is, even though here is 91, it's far over the 0.3, but just being HHC makes this product illegal in nature. Next, I wanted to go into the enforcement side of things. So drug control does not have authority over unlicensed sellers of cannabis, and we do not seize illegal cannabis from an unlicensed location. So this is why we like to pair with the local PD. If there's issues with misconduct at a licensed cannabis establishment, we at DCP will work with local police to take appropriate enforcement action. And then if there's issues with an unlicensed location, The violations are criminal in nature, and the enforcement usually rests with the local or state police. But we will still go in with them, help them identify it, help them categorize it, and get a weight on it. I wanted to include how you can look up a license for a cannabis establishment, package stores, to see if they are allowed to be selling those infused beverages from earlier in the presentation, and then also our electronic cigarette or vape dealers. So on elicense.ct.gov, you'll go to license lookup and look up a license. This is the front facing, the public view of eLicense, and you're able to search by the business name, address, and city. So you can check if they're licensed with us. Once you bring them up by the name, you'll just click on detail next to the credential that you want to know more information about. And it'll let you know down here, credential information, that it contains that ECD license, the dealer of electronic nicotine delivery system or vapor product. So if you find cannabis at a business establishment, we recommend looking up to see if the business holds a credential with DCP using the e-license system. If the business holds a cannabis dispensary, hybrid retailer or delivery service license from DCP, they may legally sell cannabis products. And if there's ever an issue with any of these places, you would contact dcp.cannabis@ct.gov. And again, these are our Connecticut approved licensed establishments. If the business holds a credential but not a cannabis license, you can still contact DCP. So they might have a lottery license, a liquor license, or the electronic cigarette license. So for businesses that hold a credential with us, but a non-cannabis credential, and they're selling cannabis, we may be able to take action against that license if there's an imminent risk to public health and safety. So still, you can definitely reach out and contact us with those, because if they have one of these licenses, it still allows us to enter the facility and complete a compliance check. And that's a lot of times when we'll find the illicit cannabis. And this is our contact information. So anytime you're out and you see these non-compliant products, you can email dcp.drugcontrol@ct.gov, or you can call the phone number 860-713-6065. One of a drug control agents, is sitting there every day from 8:30 to 5, and we will take down the information. It's helpful if you can have either the name of the smoke shop or the address. And if you have pictures of anything that you saw and you can snap a picture of and send that in the email, that's helpful. Or even just a description of what you saw, whether it's the brightly colored packaging or how many milligrams, or that you saw HHC, all that is really helpful for us to know. So by emailing or calling one of those two lines, you'll be able to start a conversation with us, and we will get a case in and we'll get an agent out to inspect. We usually at that point will reach out to DMIS, DRS, and the local police to try to arrange something for us to all go down together. And then there's the cannabis email, dcp.cannabis@ct.gov. That's if you find any issue with our licensed cannabis establishments, and they have the same phone number. And then I also included liquor controls information. They are separate from drug control, but they're under consumer protection as well, if you ever have any questions about liquor products, or if you see those infused beverages being sold and you have questions about if they're able to be sold. That's it for my presentation. I believe there's going to open up for some